In other news, the effects of normalization with Israel starting to snowball in Sudan. And Sudan hasn't even fully ratified the accords on their end yet. Authorities in Khartoum closing the door on Hamas's financial network that's long been embedded in the African country. And this as the latest part of Sudan's efforts to have sanctions lifted and stay off of the United States state sponsors of terrorism list. According to reports, officials from a task force charged with dismantling the previous Bashir regime have confiscated Hamas's holdings, including real estate, company shares, a hotel in the capital, an exchange bureau, a television station, and more than 1 million acres in farmland. Joining me now to discuss the consequences of this crackdown is Middle East expert and lecturer with Ilan University, Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Dr. Kedar, it's a pleasure to have you back with us. Now, the extent of this network surprised many, and no doubt Hamas will be affected greatly. But to what degree will this effect be, and how will the effects show up down the line?
Well, this hoard of assets which belong to Hamas is only the tip of the iceberg. And the iceberg actually are the assets of Iran in Sudan. And this is something which I have not yet seen being toppled by the new regime in Sudan. When I see that the Sudanese government cracks on the Iranian assets in Sudan, I will believe that they actually changed the direction totally. After all, Hamas was there thanks to the influence of Iran in Sudan. And just to remind you, Israel allegedly attacked at least once some factories of Iran which were built on the Sudanese soil in order to export weapons to Gaza. And those factories did not belong to Hamas. They actually worked for Hamas. But the one who ran those factories was Iran. So I first want to see what happens with the Iranian assets in addition to the Hamas assets in Sudan.
All right, well, again, speaking of these assets, Hamas is arguing that it has no connection to the assets that were seized and is demanding that they be returned to the private individuals under whose name these assets are given. And Abbas, Palestinian Authority President Abbas, is similarly claiming that the Palestinian Authority is actually entitled to these assets. Do either of these claims have any merit, and what do you expect to come out from that?
Well, definitely, an organization like Hamas cannot register things on its name because it criminalizes itself and the people who are registered. Always. Terror organizations are hiding behind companies, behind organizations, behind individuals. And this is why it is not so easy, in many cases, to trace the threads of the ownership of these assets. Apparently, the Sudanese government spent some time and effort in order to find those threads. And they found what they found. Of course, Hamas will deny in order not to incriminate itself.
All right, now there have been multiple coup attempts in Sudan in recent months. Pro-Bashir factions are still fairly influential. How stable is the Sudanese government going forward as they come closer to the Abraham Accords?
Well, there is an even bigger question: to what extent Sudan as a state is stable as a state? Don't forget that like almost 10 years ago, Sudan was divided to two countries, Sudan and South Sudan. And the main problems remained in both countries. The multiple situation of many tribes, hundreds of tribes, ethnic groups, religions, languages. It's not only Arabs or Christians as it was between the North and the South. The divisions are deep in the society of Sudan. Sudan was an artificial state which was created by the British some 70, 80 years ago. And the main problem of Sudan is the cohesiveness or the lack of cohesiveness of the society in Sudan. And what you see as coup here and coup there is only the result of the social divides inside the Sudanese government, which are still alive and kicking, if not also alive and killing.
All right, so major obstacles still to come, it seems, or lying in the road ahead. Dr. Kedar, thank you so much.